Meter socket standardization is a common practice among utility companies. It helps to ensure uniformity, safety, and reliability in electrical systems. In the West Texas area, Xcel Energy requires a specific type of meter socket. This socket must be a 200 amp lever bypass, locking jaw, ringless type. This requirement applies to both permanent and temporary power poles. Xcel Energy's reasoning behind this standardization is to ensure uniformity and prevent compatibility issues within their grid. This requirement can impact contractors and customers, especially when dealing with temporary power poles. The cost of compliant meter sockets can be higher than standard sockets. This means contractors need to factor in the increased expense when bidding on jobs. While Xcel Energy's specific requirements apply to the service area, similar standardization practices are becoming more common across the electrical industry. The goal is to improve the safety and reliability of electrical connections. Now let's talk about some possible alternatives for temporary power poles. Firstly, contractors could consider using a temporary meter socket that still meets the required specifications. Secondly, contractors could install a permanent meter socket on the temporary pole. Then they would remove it when the pole is no longer needed. Some contractors might question the need for standardized meter sockets on temporary power poles. However, utility companies prioritize safety and reliability above all else. Standardization helps minimize risks associated with electrical connections, protecting both workers and the public. In conclusion, Xcel Energy's meter socket standardization requirement is a mandate that contractors and customers need to adhere to. It can add cost to projects, especially for temporary power poles. But understanding the reasons behind the requirement and exploring available alternatives can help minimize the impact on projects. The specific reasons for the standardization are based around safety. Any kind of differences and types of meter sockets may have compatibility issues. These compatibility issues can cause some severe dangers to the public. It is best to check with the local utility for the meter socket requirements. It is very important to have the correct meter socket. These meter sockets are what the power company will use to connect to the house or building. If the incorrect socket is installed, then this can cause the power to not be turned on. A proper inspection of the meter socket as well as the wiring should be done to make sure everything is correct. This is for safety reasons. Power can be dangerous if the wiring is not correct or if the meter socket is not correct. It is very important to have the correct equipment and wiring for the power. You may want to also check with the local inspector on the specific rules of what is allowed and what is not allowed. The NEC National Electrical Code has a certain amount of rules in the book, but it is ultimately up to the local inspector's decision on the final ruling. For example, NEC Table 310.15b16 gives the ampacity of conductors based on insulation type and temperature rating, but local amendments can change the minimum size allowed. Also, NEC Section 250.122 dictates the size of equipment grounding conductors, ensuring a safe path for fault current. Utility companies might also have their own construction standards manuals that dictate approved materials and methods for connecting to their grid. It's important to review these documents and have a copy with you. A meter socket is a crucial component of an electrical service, providing a standardized connection point for the utility's meter. The meter itself measures the amount of electrical energy consumed by a building or residence. Ensuring the correct meter socket is installed and properly wired is paramount for safety, accurate billing, and reliable service. A 200 amp meter socket is designed to handle electrical services up to 200 amps. This is a common size for residential homes and smaller commercial buildings. A lever bypass feature allows the utility to remove the meter without interrupting power to the customer. This is typically used for meter maintenance or replacement. A locking jaw mechanism secures the meter in place, preventing unauthorized removal or tampering. A ringless design eliminates the need for a retaining ring, making meter installation and removal easier and faster. Always consult with the local utility company, such as Xcel Energy, to confirm their specific requirements for meter sockets in your area. These requirements can vary depending on location, service size, and other factors. Install meter sockets according to the manufacturer's instructions and all applicable electrical codes, such as the National Electrical Code. Use appropriately sized conductors and connectors for the 200 amp service. Ensure that the meter socket is properly grounded according to NEC section 250. This provides a safe path for fault current and helps prevent electrical shock. Inspect the meter socket regularly for any signs of damage such as cracks, corrosion, or loose connections. Replace any damaged components immediately. If you are not a qualified electrician, do not attempt to install or repair a meter socket. Contact a licensed electrician for assistance. Meter sockets should be installed by a qualified electrician in compliance with all relevant codes and regulations. These codes and regulations are put in place for safety. Proper grounding is essential for safety and should be done in accordance with NEC requirements. The size of the grounding electrode conductor depends on the size of the service entrance conductor. Overcurrent protection, such as circuit breakers or fuses, should be sized appropriately for the load. The overcurrent protection devices are there for safety to prevent fires. The wiring inside the meter socket and panel should be neat and organized. This helps to prevent short circuits and makes it easier to troubleshoot problems. All connections should be tight and secure. Loose connections can cause overheating and arcing. Label all circuits clearly. This makes it easier to identify and troubleshoot problems. If you are unsure about any aspect of the installation, consult with a qualified electrician. The NEC is updated every 3 years. Make sure you are using the latest edition of the NEC. Local codes may differ from the NEC. Be sure to check with your local building department for any local amendments to the NEC. Obtain all necessary permits before starting any electrical work. Meter sockets are typically made of metal or plastic. Metal meter sockets must be grounded. Plastic meter sockets do not need to be grounded. Meter sockets are available in a variety of sizes. The size of the meter socket depends on the size of the service. Meter sockets are available with or without a bypass switch. A bypass switch allows the utility company to disconnect the meter without interrupting power to the building. Meter sockets are available with or without a locking mechanism. A locking mechanism prevents unauthorized access to the meter. Meter socket should be installed in a location that is accessible to the utility company. Meter socket should be protected from the weather. Meter socket should be installed in a location that is free from obstructions. Before working on any electrical equipment, always disconnect the power supply. Use caution when working with electricity. Electricity can be dangerous. If you are not comfortable working with electricity, contact a qualified electrician. Ensure that all electrical work is performed in accordance with all applicable codes and regulations. When selecting a meter socket, ensure that it is listed by a nationally recognized testing laboratory such as UL. This indicates that the meter socket has been tested and meets safety standards. Check the ampacity rating of the meter socket to ensure that it is sufficient for the intended load. The ampacity rating is the maximum amount of current that the meter socket can safely handle. Consider the environmental conditions in which the meter socket will be installed. If the meter socket will be exposed to moisture or corrosive substances, select a meter socket that is rated for those conditions. Inspect the meter socket for any signs of damage before installation. Do not install a damaged meter socket. Use appropriate tools and techniques when installing the meter socket. Follow the manufacturer's instructions carefully. Ensure that all connections are tight and secure. Loose connections can cause overheating and arcing, which can lead to fires. Protect the meter socket from physical damage. Consider installing a protective enclosure around the meter socket to prevent damage from vehicles or other objects. Regularly inspect the meter socket for any signs of damage or deterioration. Replace the meter socket if it is damaged or deteriorated. Keep the area around the meter socket clear of debris. Debris can accumulate and create a fire hazard. If you are unsure about any aspect of the installation or maintenance of a meter socket, consult with a qualified electrician. A properly installed and maintained meter socket is essential for the safety and reliability of your electrical system. Meter sockets are important for several reasons. Firstly, they provide a safe and reliable connection point for the utilities meter. Secondly, they protect the meter from damage and tampering. Thirdly, they allow the utility company to easily disconnect the meter for maintenance or replacement. The different types of meter sockets are rated by amps. Amps, or amperage, measures the electrical current. A 200 amp meter socket has a much higher rating than a 100 amp meter socket, for example. It can handle more electrical current. The electrical panel in the building must also be rated for 200 amps if you use a 200 amp meter socket. This means you may need to have the wire replaced as well. Using a temporary pole is great when you need power for a short time. However, you need to use the correct meter socket and wiring. A permit may be required for the temporary power pole and the electrical service. Call the utility to have the electricity turned on once you have the wiring complete and it has been inspected. The utility company will install the meter. Only the utility company is allowed to install the meter. The reason why is because they have to be sure that there is no power being stolen. The power company also has special meters that can transmit the amount of power being used. They can read the meter remotely. If you have solar panels, then the meter will run backwards when the panels are creating electricity.